So for monocular housings, the housing that is most recommended is going to be the PVS-14, and for good reason. It's a very reliable housing. It's seen a lot of use in many conflicts around the world, and it has a great track record and history of being the gold standard of monocular devices. But there may be a true challenger approaching in the Nocturn Industries Tanto, and the reason why this device is different and a great alternative to the PVS-14 because it's not trying to outdo the PVS-14 in what it does. The 14 is a great all-in-one solution for monocular, but what the Tanto adds to the market is its philosophy of use, and that is going to be built around the idea of modularity. The Tanto is a very functional monocular on its own. It's extremely lightweight and durable. We're going to get into specs in a bit, but it's built around the idea of being able to be built up into different setups, whether that be on a panel bridge, hybrid thermal setup, or with their new product, which is going to be the Daisho bridge. This Daisho bridge is very interesting. It allows the user to bridge two Tanto monoculars together in a powered solution that offers a no compromise binocular system versus other options like bridged 14s. So first off, we're going to get a little technical here and compare the specifications and features of these two devices. The PVS-14, being the older of the two devices before the ultralight craze, weighs slightly more at 351 grams. Conversely, the Tanto, being the newer device designed around weight considerations in mind, weighs 248 grams. This is about a 30% difference between these two devices, which while their own might not be significant, when you start to pair these with mounts, arms, and if you want to build these out to be binocular housings or with a hybrid thermal setup, for example, that weight does add up quite quickly. Another big difference is going to be the ergonomics and activation of the device. The PVS-14 uses a very tried and true knob on the rear, whereas the Tanto uses this push button device very similar to most flashlights on the market. The PVS-14 also has some additional features to it, that being that the PVS-14 has a gain knob in the front. So this device, if you build it with a tube that has a pigtail on it, you can control the brightness of the device with the gain knob over here. The device also has an illuminator at the front, which you can turn on in the rear. However, because the PVS-14 was made in a different time, it was made before a lot of accessories existed. So back then, they didn't have all these fancy helmets with rails on them, so you couldn't really attach illuminators or all that stuff to your helmet. It wasn't as much of a consideration. Now, with all these accessories and as mature the tactical market is, while the Tanto might be missing an illuminator feature, you can easily attach something like a Princeton Tech to your helmet or some form of illuminator that's actually much better and more powerful than the standard PVS-14 illuminator. Additionally, as an alternative to manual gain on the Tanto, you can install something like an iris device, which is this CHAD over here. And this allows you to open and close the objective of the nod, controlling the amount of light that gets through. Somewhat like gain, it's not exactly the same, but somewhat like gain. But the additional feature that you get with something like an iris is you can control the depth of field because you're controlling the aperture of the device, which may have different usage considerations depending on what you need. We're going to do a CHAD and an iris video down the road, but that is something to consider for your device. Another big difference is going to be the batteries that they take. The PVS-14, being made in a different era, takes the very old and standard AA battery. Now, this can be a great option if you just have a bunch of TV remotes lying around. You can probably grab a AA from that if you so incline. Not recommended, but AA's are very easy to find. You can find them anywhere, and these can take alkaline batteries or lithium batteries. Tanto takes the newer CR123. Now, these batteries can be slightly harder to find. However, if you're into guns or airsoft or any tactical stuff, CR123s are a very standard battery. You can find them anywhere. The additional benefit of using CR123s, other than them being lithium and not as prone to leakage as alkaline batteries, is the fact that CR123s provide a better power delivery and a higher power density than AA batteries. So the Tanto will have a slightly longer battery life than the PVS-14. Now, does this really matter? These devices both last 40 plus hours. The Tanto might be pushing that towards 60 or 70. So up to you, but a little bit of battery life is never a bad thing. So with those differences aside, I think when it comes to a monocular setting, it really depends. If you want an all-in-one monocular, you want a monocular that has all the bells and whistles and features, but the consideration of building that up to a different setup is secondary, I think the PVS-14 is still a really solid choice to go with, and it's the reason why it's been around for so long. However, we're going to get into the next bit, which is going to be modularity. If you want to be building your device to have a dual tube setup or with thermals or something else, the Tanto especially with the Daisho, which we're going to go over in a bit, offers a lot of modern features that even dual PVS-14s don't have. So working in the night vision industry, we see a huge degree of the buying process, and it's very interesting to see people's night vision journeys. We notice a large chunk and perhaps even a majority of people starting off with a single monocular housing and going one of two ways. Either they upgrade into duals and they sell that monocular housing, or they want to retain the ability to use two separate housings but also put them in a dual bridge setup. And the old school way of doing this was to buy another PVS-14, like you see here, and buying a bridge for it. In this case, it's going to be a ultralight noise fighters panel bridge. And this gives you pretty much a dual unit, and you can separate these and use them as two separate housings. PVS-14 was never really designed to do this. It was meant to be a singular device, but this is an interesting workaround and it works pretty well. But there are some drawbacks because the PVS-14 was not initially designed to do this. First off is going to be the weight. This device weighs about 700 grams. It's pretty heavy. 700 grams is a lot. Some quad tube setups like GP NVGs or Lindus weigh about 700 or so grams. So you have a 2-tube housing that weighs as much as a 4-tube housing. And you know, I don't got that damn thick neck. We're going out there hiking and stuff like that. But weight does equal pain. And if you're wearing this for a long period of time, you will notice that strain, especially because you're going to have to add a more substantial counterweight on the back, just increasing the overall head-borne weight of your device substantially. So that's one big downside. Another big downside is going to be the actual ergonomics of using two separate devices as opposed to a dedicated binocular. So I'm going to turn these on over here. And as you can see, turning it on is already a little bit of a pain, especially if you're in a dynamic circumstances, you're running some training on the range, you need this for actual mission equipment, or if you're just playing airsoft, it's annoying. So these devices are on right now, which is great. But if I want to turn them off, I have to turn this one off and then turn this one off. Same thing with their illuminators. If I want to use any of their features, they're individually activated. For a lot of devices, when you roll the pod up, the device shuts off to protect it from backsplashing against your helmet and to protect it from light damage. When you roll this up, it's still on, as you can see. Now, it technically has individual pod shut off, unlike some duals, where you can turn this off, but that is, again, a manual process, just like this one. Boom. One thing to consider, because you're using two devices in tandem, is you're going to need two batteries. So this needs a AA and this needs a AA. The bridge is basically just a mount. It doesn't have any power solutions in it. Powered bridges do exist. There are solutions for that, but most people can't get them outside of the US. And again, they don't really solve that issue of weight. And this is where this gets replaced with something a bit more modern to the setup, which is going to be this. And this is the Nocturn Industries Daisho with two Tantos on it. We just call this the completed Daisho for ease of words, pretty much. The two Tantos are mounted on this powered bridge. And what this gives you is an uncompromised binocular setup that functions very much like Nocturn Industries' other products, which is its older but smaller brother here, the Katana, and it looks very similar to this guy, except this one looks like it went on a bit of a diet. And it works very similarly. The way that this works is you take the battery cap off of one of these devices, you keep one of them on, so that way it can act as a battery cap for the center power console. And then you attach the devices, you screw in the rear pieces, and bam, you have a completed binocular setup. If you want a more detailed breakdown on that, we're going to refer you to the maker of the device, which is Nocturn Industries, and they released a great video on how to assemble it. Now, if you are assembling it, like any dual monocular setup, we do recommend sending it to us so that we can collimate the lenses on the rear. And what that does is allows the images to be in line so you don't have any weird off-axis images and you get the best image quality for your investment. So what does this give you over a standard dual PVS-14? Well, first off, like I mentioned, it gives you that ergonomic consideration. So this functions like any dual housing. It doesn't have two power switches, doesn't have two battery caps, it doesn't have two of anything except for two image pods. It has a single CR123 sitting in the middle over here, and you just press it and it turns on, as you can see there, and then you just press it to turn it off. It's very simple, it's very fast, you don't need to worry about fiddling with two knobs, super easy. Another thing that I was impressed by is the individual pod shut off, which works really, really reliably and well. So when you roll this pod up, it turns off, just like the Katana or most modern binocular housings. Same thing with this side over here. So that way you can protect your tubes from accidental light damage and splash back to your helmet. And then when you roll them down again, they turn on. which is great. One thing that these have that those don't have over there is going to be an IPD stop. So it's kind of annoying when you're using something like a Dual 14, when you roll this up and you roll it back down again, you have to manually put it in front of your eye, whereas the Katana, Daisho, and all Nocturn products have this crescent moon soft stop on the back. So you roll it all the way up to kind of reset the stop, and then you roll it down to where your eye is, and once you have that set, you roll it up, it stops, you roll it down, it stops, and if you want to reset it, you just have to roll it all the way up to overcome it, and if you want to bring it closer to your eyes, depending on the interpupillary distance of your head, you just roll it in more, and it'll create a new friction point where it just stops. Additionally, for the future proofing of this housing and to offer additional battery options, it has a double-aught LEMO port in the back. What this allows you to do is connect the Nocturn Industries bat pack or any other battery pack that's compatible with a double-aught LEMO port, and you get external power, which increases your battery life for when this is a dual. It's about 20 to 25 hours or so. It increases that by orders of magnitude up to 60, 70, 80 hours with 2 tubes, which is pretty impressive and could be a consideration depending on your mission profile. Like all modern Nocturn housings, it has an aluminum dovetail over here, so you don't have to worry about any of that breaking, and it has aluminum rear supports for the pods over here. So if the pod does take some force in the back, you have metal pieces supporting the pod if it bangs up against a door frame. The second big advantage to all this, other than those little ones, is going to be the weight. Now, I mentioned that the Dual 14s, even on an ultralight bridge, weighs about 700 grams. On heavier aluminum bridges, it's going to weigh closer to 750, even 800. This device, fully completed, weighs about 570 grams we measured on our scale. If you use lightweight optics such as RPOs, it can weigh even less, well under 500 grams, which is very impressive for a device that is a binocular, but also maintains the capability to split the pod so that you can use it as 2 separate monocular housings. This weight puts the device in line with a lot of other devices such as the Katana, 1431, NVGs, and so forth. So in your night vision journey, you got to ask these key questions. Are you going to stick with a monocular device forever and maybe resell and upgrade down the future, or do you want something that's modular? Do you plan on ever splitting the nods so that you can use it with a friend or a partner, or do you plan on just having a dedicated dual setup? And with that, if you guys need any help with night vision stuff, contact us. We're always willing to help and give you a bit of a guide on our products and help you with your decision-making process, because it can be a big decision on what device you get. And we hope you stay safe out there, have fun with these things, and Nocturn Industries Daisho, probably the coolest modular housing on the market. Have a good day, everybody.